There are places on this planet that feel like they were never meant to be found. Homes carved into cliffs so high, we don't know how anyone reached them. A lost city buried in jungle. Proof that history lied about who discovered the world. These are real places, built by people we still don't understand. And the deeper you go into them, the less sense they make. There are cliffs in West Africa where people built homes inside the rock face, hundreds of feet up. The Bandiagara escarpment rises from the Mali desert, stretching nearly 150 kilometers. It looks like the earth broke, carved directly into its face, like wounds in the stone, are thousands of ancient dwellings. Doorways, windows, granaries, entire villages, suspended in the air. Nobody built them recently. These structures belong to the Telem, a civilization that vanished so completely. Telem is a word the Dogon people use for them, meaning those who were here before us.
But here's where it gets strange. The early inhabitants didn't just live in cliffs, they built inside them.
At heights even modern climbers struggle to reach. Without metal tools, without wheels, or any technology. Archaeologists have tried to figure it out for decades. Some say the rock face had natural handholds. Others say the early inhabitants used ropes made from plants. But no ropes or tools have ever been found. Just the buildings, perfectly placed, impossibly high. And then things get even more disturbing. Inside those cliff homes, researchers found something unexpected. Hundreds of bodies, wrapped in cloth, stacked carefully, almost like someone was preserving them, waiting to come back. The Dogon people moved into the escarpment later. They say the Telem had a power, a gift. They say the Telem could fly. You can dismiss that, but then explain the buildings. Explain how a people with no modern tools, machines, or written language carved a civilization. A civilization so precisely built that parts of it are still standing today. After 1,000 years of desert wind and scorching heat, the Dogon didn't build those dwellings. So who did? And more importantly, where did they go? In 1972, a group of treasure hunters hacked their way through one of the densest jungles on Earth. They were looking for gold, but found something older, a city. The lost city sits deep inside the Sierra Nevada mountains of northern Colombia. To get there, you walk. Through jungles so thick, sunlight barely reaches the ground. Through rivers you cross on foot, through heat that feels alive. The city doesn't want to be reached. Yet someone, 1,000 years ago, built it. 250 stone terraces, carved into the side of a mountain, connected by a network of stone staircases. One staircase alone has 1,200 steps, cut directly into the rock. Drainage channels managed rainfall without flooding, in one of the wettest places on Earth. A water system so smart, it could redirect streams. Without machines, without blueprints we've ever found. The builders were these ancient people. A civilization so advanced that Spanish conquistadors, arriving in the 1500s, couldn't believe what they were seeing. The Tairona had gold, complex jewelry, and a trade network that stretched across the entire northern coast of South America. But here's where it gets strange. The Spanish never found Ciudad Perdida. They searched, hearing rumors of a great city. They pushed into the jungle, failed or died trying. The city treasure hunters found in 1972 had been hidden, perfectly complete for over 400 years. The jungle swallowed it whole. And then things get even more disturbing. When treasure hunters climbed the ancient staircases, they began removing and selling artifacts. Word spread, and more looters came. By the time archaeologists arrived, the site had already been partially ransacked. Several of those original treasure hunters were killed, shot in the jungle. By whom? It's never been fully confirmed. The Kogi people, living descendants of the Tairona, still live in the Sierra Nevada mountains. They knew about Ciudad Perdida.
They never told anyone. They call it Tayuna, their name for it, the heart of the world.
A sacred place so important that for centuries, they simply guarded it with silence. The Kogi still perform ceremonies there.
They believe the city is alive, that it breathes, that disturbing it disturbs the balance of the entire earth.
That might sound like superstition, but consider this. The Tairona built a city so well engineered it survived 1,000 years of jungle.
While every Spanish fort built in the same region crumbled to dust centuries ago. So maybe the Kogi aren't protecting a ruin.
Maybe they're protecting something that still works.
Every child learns the same story. Columbus sailed in 1492. He landed in the Americas and discovered a new world. A clean story, simple, easy to remember. It's also wrong. 500 years before Columbus, someone else was already here. They built homes, lit fires, and repaired their ships. Then, for reasons history never fully explains, they left. We almost missed the proof entirely.
Lonceau Meadows sits at the northern tip of Newfoundland, Canada. It's one of the most remote places.
Fog rolls in off the North Atlantic like a curtain closing. The ground is boggy and cold. Trees barely grow here. Every child learns the same story. Columbus sailed in 1492. He landed in the Americas and discovered a new world. But in 1960, a Norwegian explorer, a pioneering researcher, and his wife followed a hunch. They'd been studying Old Norse tales. Ancient stories passed down for centuries described lands far to the west, with forests, rivers, and wild grapes. Lands the Vikings called Vinland. Most historians thought Vinland was a myth. Helge didn't. He traced the sailing routes, he measured distances, followed coastlines on maps. Eventually, he landed on a tiny fishing village and asked about old ruins.
The man said yes and walked him to a field. Beneath the grass, buried under soil, were outlines of buildings.
Norse buildings, Viking buildings, perfectly consistent with what the sagas described.
This is where history breaks down. Because what they found wasn't just a campsite, it was a settlement. 8 structures, a forge, a place where metal was worked using fire, one of the most complex things in that era. Hog iron processing, wooden artifacts, and butternuts, a type of nut that doesn't grow anywhere near Newfoundland, meaning the Vikings had traveled further south to find them. They weren't just here, they were exploring. The ancient tales describe conflict, a prominent leader, and a courageous woman who defended against adversaries single-handedly. They describe grapes, animals they'd never seen, and people they called Skraelings, indigenous people of North America.
And then the Norse left. Why? Some historians say they were outnumbered by the Skraelings.
Some say resources ran out. Others say inner conflicts between the Norse settlers became too deadly to survive. But here's the part that quietly haunts researchers. The sagas suggest the Norse made multiple trips, not just once. A deliberate return again and again to a land they clearly knew existed. Somewhere out there, buried under forests and fields. There may be more sites, more settlements, more chapters of a story we thought we understood. Lonceau Meadows is the only confirmed Viking site in North America. Confirmed being the keyword. If Helge Ingstad hadn't followed a crazy hunch to the coldest corner of Canada, we might still believe Columbus was first. How many other hunches haven't been followed yet?